Are you getting many visitors to your church these days? Maybe not. It's a different culture, isn't it? But the deeper question is, how has that affected the culture of the church? Hi, I'm Scott Gress, leadership coach. It used to be that the church was the center of social activities. People would be attending church as a norm on Sunday morning. You moved to a new community, you'd look for a new church to attend. And in that kind of an environment, the church members kind of turned a little bit passive in evangelism and disciple making. As long as you had a decent orientation to the church new member process, if you had a fairly good sermon and a fairly full program with something for youth and adults, then the church probably did just fine. But now that that culture of not going to church has changed in our society, how has our church culture changed? Well, unfortunately, probably not very much. We know that we need to be different because the society is now different. But the trouble is, you can't just change the culture of a congregation from passive to more active, or more of a consumer-minded church to a more servant-minded, disciple-making church. You can't just cause that flip or that switch through a 10-week program or speaking new information into people's heads. Changing culture is about changing behaviors that are then affirmed over time as being the way that we do things and who we are. So what am I talking about? What might be some first steps into culture change and into evangelism and disciple making for members and congregations? Let me give you two. The first would be the conviction that the pastor needs to model the way, so that as the pastor talks to people outside the congregation, and maybe that's a growth step in itself. The pastor often spends so much time with members of the congregation, they don't know anybody outside the church. So as the pastor might receive some coaching or move out into building some of those relationships, sharing the gospel, then the pastor comes back to the congregation, whether it's meetings, Bible classes, sermons, begins to tell the story of what happened when they evangelized and sought to reach out to other people. So that's number one, the pastor models the way. The second thing is for members to begin telling their story of how they are evangelizing in the community. And what if they're not doing that? Well, an easy step is to give members of the congregation a business card of the church. It's name, address, worship times, Facebook page, Twitter feed, and so forth. And then on the other side, perhaps having the member's name and telephone number. So that as the members are out into the community, whether it's work or school or home or wherever, neighborhood, and they're involved in conversations, talking with people about normal things, what's going well in their lives, maybe what the challenges are, maybe even complaining a little bit, sharing frustrations or worries, the member can say, we pray for people here. Let me give you this card. I'd like to invite you to our church on Sunday. I'd be happy to pick you up. Hey, you know what? Can I pray for you? And then let's keep in touch and we can see what God is doing as a result of those prayers. The point is not to be handing out the card, but the card is kind of a talking piece, something that can be the focus of the conversation, so that the conversation turns towards spiritual things, towards answers, towards support, towards help, and ways in which people can feel that love of God in Jesus Christ. The gospel might not be shared, but it's a way in which members who maybe used to be passive in their culture and way of understanding how church is, because of the way the culture used to be in society, to now being one of stepping forward talking about their faith, talking about their church. It's a talking piece. Pastors modeling the way and handing out a card talking about your church. Maybe you have some ideas of how to shift the culture inside a congregation. I'd love to hear from you. Let's have some conversation. Send me an email at scottgress@me.com. I'd love to have that conversation. Thanks for watching.